If you are tired of trying to be a superwoman, or if you're married to somebody who is, relief may be at hand. Superwomen's Anonymous is a new self-help group. Already 300 strong, annual dues $12, no meetings. But you receive 4 newsletters a year. The group was founded by Carol Orsborn, who is married, a mother of 2, and until a few months ago had live-in help and ran a great big house in San Rafael, California, which she rarely saw because she spent most of her waking hours working at her own PR firm. All that is history now. Carol Orsborn is just as likely to be found bobbing in Sausalito Harbor as she would be in the office.
When I'm out in the middle of the bay, first of all, one of the most incredible things is how far away I am from the freeway. And yet it's there. It's about 10 minutes away as the crow flies, or as the seagull flies, actually. And I can hear the trucks and the cars way off in the distance, and I'm so pleased to not be there with them. When I'm with my children, I'm there for them. And I've been able to rearrange my schedule so that when we need to move quickly or whatever, I can really devote myself to helping them move it along so that there isn't that sense of, my God, I've got to take care of me at the same time I take care of them, at the same time I take care of Dan. So I think we've lost a lot of that quality of scattered freneticness. Last year, I always seemed to be rushing. And I remember one day my little boy looked at me and said, Mom, what if we just move quickly instead of rushing? And I thought that was very wise. I think I saved myself 3 years too late. I could have done this a long time ago. I'm working about half-time, and because the work is just rolling along, it doesn't have to be every day anymore. There's a great sigh of relief, sort of an international, thank heaven somebody said what I've been feeling, that I thought I was the only one, and now I realize that I'm not the only one.
Carol Orsborn, what did it cost you to cut back to the degree that you did?
Well, the cost was in the degree of courage that I had to bring to it, because originally there were rumors around town that we had gone bankrupt or eaten the big one or whatever. Yeah. And we just kept going ahead and doing what it is that we wanted to do.
So you're saying it financially didn't cost you much. You have so far been lucky.
Well, I don't think it's a matter of luck. I'm in a very creative profession, and I have the creativity now to fuel me, whereas I was driven through effort before.
Oh, so you've made it pay off for you. But you talk in the newsletter about something called the pleasures of downward mobility.
Yes, Well, we got rid of the stress in our life by moving from a larger house to a smaller house. And the irony is that when we got rid of the need to make our mortgage payments, then it's been much easier.
All right, so you released some of the pressure.
Yes, a lot of the pressure, all the pressure.
Not only were you driven, but you were driving your children.
Yes.
How?
Well, literally driving them to all kinds of classes. I wanted them to have every advantage. And in the process of giving them all the advantages, we really lost what I now know is the most important thing for a family, and that is time to hang out together. I think that my little daughter learned the back of my head before she learned the front of my face, because she was always sitting in the back seat of the car.
Going to
gymnastics classes and daycare, and my little boy, who's 6 years older, has taken every kind of course: French, skiing, skating, gymnastics, you name it.
Are they driven children, or were you driving them mad?
Well,
I mean, they are genetically you. You are an ambitious woman. Maybe they want all that.
Well, I think that we can learn from our kids. Kids want to play. I mean, you look at a soccer game, especially with the little ones that are 6 and 7 years old, and the parents are on the sidelines going crazy, and the kids are watching the daisies. And the parents are saying, stop watching the daisies. It's time to kick the ball. And I think kids really are onto something.
You're holding in your lap some of the letters.
Carol Orsborn doesn't look like a superwoman of the 80s. The ones who juggle a career, marriage, children, personal life, and physical fitness regime. But she's been there and found it wanting. She decided to row against the tide and head toward downward mobility to a life that allows her to exchange pressure for a paddle around the bay at Sausalito a couple of times a week. Carol, tell me, what was your life like when you had it all? A quote.
I think I did have it all, and I was exhausted. I felt like, gosh, here I am in this beautiful home. I have the career that I wanted. I have friends. I'm physically fit, and I was just beat. I mean, I could barely make it home after work to hit the bed.
Was there any particular time or instance that made you say, that's it, enough?
I think I know the exact moment. I was sitting in my living room, and it's got a beautiful, this was the old living room of our dream home that we had struggled so much and so hard to get enough money to get the mortgage papers signed. And I thought to myself, so what? It really isn't for me a question of doing less. And I'm afraid that some people could misinterpret it that way. And what it is for me is doing what it is that I really want to do.
Friends moved to a smaller house, commuted less, worked fewer hours, and took some of the structure out of their lives. What are some of the activities that I hate to say it, that you put your child through?
Karate, skiing, ice skating, swimming, French, gymnastics.
What have you put in its place?
I realized that I have a lot of talent and skills and abilities, and so does his father. There's a lot of things that we can share with Grant that we don't have to pay other people to do and wait out in the car while, you know, chauffeuring him back and forth.
Let's talk about success.
Society's definition of success is more, bigger, better. But I think that I don't use the word success too much in relationship to my life anymore, although if I were, it would be, I would define it as just happiness with myself.
Carol touted her philosophy in a newsletter, Superwomen Anonymous, which is published in San Francisco and has reached 2,000 women.
It's wonderful to...
My next guest cut back on the hours she put into her own public relations firm because she realized that having it all was just not worth it. Carol Orsborn is author of the book Enough is Enough, Exploding the Myth of Having It All. She says women need to give themselves permission not to be everything to everybody all the time. And my last guest says she used to be a workaholic, pediatric nurse, putting in long hours, worrying about her own children at home. Lynn Hatfield says she finally just gave it up and went home because you just can't have it all. Oh, it's Carol, enough is enough?
You bet. You bet. And I think we're all missing the point here, because it's really not just women who are adopting the self-destructive lifestyle. It's men and women. And I think it's a compensation for the fact that we're not getting out of life what is here anyway, the spiritual values and the joy of just hanging out and having a great time. We're compensating by going crazy.
There's enough room here that if I want to stay home with my small child and make a contribution, and I want to cuddle up on the couch with the kid and read him stories and have him be great, I shouldn't have to go nuts trying to justify that.
But there are workaholic homemakers too, Oprah. There are workaholic homemakers who have the floor. You have to eat off the floor. I don't like to eat off the floor. I want to sit at a table like a human being. What do I need?
You know what's going on here is I'm learning how to be gentle in my life, but to be on this panel, there's no way I could let that show. You know, you gotta get in.
You have to get in when you can.
You know, to be a woman also includes being receptive, being gentle, as well as knowing when it is that you need to put it out there.
That's my steel magnolia technique.
The steel magnolia, fine, but we've gone so heavily in the direction of steel, there ain't no magnolia
Oh, there's plenty of magnolia left. No, what I resent is this. I resent this dichotomy that the full-time homemaker and those who support the full-time homemaker are trying to make the working woman feel guilty. Oh, you left your kids alone.
Exactly
they're being reared by strangers, and that's not fair.
It's exactly the opposite.
Wait, we're missing the whole point.
No.
And the whole point is...
The whole point is we talk too fast, we work too much, whether we're home or in the workplace. We're on this pace of insanity. It's self-destruction as a lifestyle for our society, men and women.
Okay,
it's honored in the advertisements, it's honored in the commercials.
A superwoman, someone who's got it all and wants more. Well, Carol Orsborn was one of those until she said enough is enough, and then wrote a book by that name. She's with us this morning. Hello. How are you?
Hi, Harriet. Thank you.
First of all, we're going to announce that this is going to be a very average interview, right?
Well, that's right, because one of my philosophies is that we should really have the courage to be average. In our society, we're all taught that you have to live up to your potential. And so most of us are struggling, straining, efforting. We're never happy because the potential is always going to be out there.
So that really is what a superwoman is? What does a superwoman do?
A superwoman is somebody who's trying to have, do, and be it all, or feeling guilty if she doesn't. So that really includes all of us. I mean, there are plenty of women out there who are at home, who don't have a job, who feel terrible. They feel like there's something wrong with them because they're not working. And there's plenty of women in the workplace who have great careers, who don't have kids, who feel like there's something wrong. So the way things have come down the pike for the women of my generation, our generation, is that nobody feels good about themselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, how do you, I have a daughter, and we all have daughters and sons. How do you make your daughter realize that life can be wonderful and you can love what you do, but not fill her with a sense of having to be best at something when you yourself are trying to also do a good job?
Well, I have two kids, 2 and 8, so I'm really struggling with those issues right now, because my son, for instance, he is just perfectly happy being average at many things that I was always striving to be the best in the class or the star in the play. And he's like a really happy kid. And I have to ask myself, do I really want my kid to be the best at everything, or do I want my kid to be the happiest kid?
What was your background? What made you want to be a superwoman?
Well, I grew up in a community that had all the advantages, and I grew up really feeling that I could have all the potential in the world. The women's liberation movement hit me at a time when I was in my school days, and I felt that I could have the whole world as my oyster. The thing that I didn't leave behind were all the traditional women's roles. So when I hit my 30s, and I chose to become a mother, I had all that old programming in me that said, hey, I want to be a great mother. My career was booming. And then came Jane Fonda, and I also had to have, you know, a great body. So I went out and I became a brown belt in karate. I mean, the women today, we're not just doing things in an average way. We're really going for broke.
When was the moment that you realized that you were really pushing against something else, that you were not really just doing living a natural kind of a life and weren't happy?
Well, I think I always knew in the back of my mind, but there was the sense that I could get someplace, the next promotion, the bigger house, that there would be something that I could do that would then solve my problems.
It almost became addictive, right?
It really did. And unfortunately, I achieved my life dreams at the age of around 35. And we moved into our dream home. And I was sitting in this beautiful home looking at every dream come true. The kids, the husband, the career, the brown belt, you name it. And as I sat there, I thought to myself, you know, we have just bought this wonderful house, and I have signed my life away to 60, 70-hour work weeks for the rest of my life. You know, we go into debt emotionally, spiritually, economically, psychically, every way possible in order to keep up these days.
So what did you do?
Well, I did, after a year of agonizing, convince my husband that we should sell the house and move to a much smaller house. We cut the business size in half.
You would call this downwardly mobile then?
Downward mobility. Pulled my kids out of many of the classes that were straining us in terms of just time running them places and also financially.
How did they feel about that?
Well, what we replaced it with was just a whole lot of fun. I mean, right now, I can sit with my 2-year-old in front of the fireplace with music going. I don't have to be running her off to a bunch of gym classes and tumbling at age 2. She doesn't have to learn dancing. She doesn't have to learn French. We can just sit and enjoy each other's company.
Yeah, I think children really do suffer with that, don't they? That
I think they do.
whole feeling of having to be pushed.
Right.
Now, you also give yourself a great deal of time. Don't you?
Yes.
By yourself, for yourself.
Right.
Because if you're not nourished, you can't nourish. What do you do?
Well, I've taken to long walks and rowing, and as a matter of fact, one of my favorite things is doing nothing, and that's one of the hardest things. This Mother's Day, I'd like to ask every woman in America to join me in a sit-out. And I'm going to call it for 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I want every woman to take 60 seconds. And believe me, that's a stretch for most women.
That's incredible.
60 seconds to do nothing. I want this to be the most useless minute in American history.
And without hearing things like, I've got to do something, I've got to do something, I've got to do something.
That's it. Now, I don't know how many women are going to be able to do 60 seconds.
Well, they can try. You have now started Superwoman Anonymous, and the thing I love about it is that nobody has to go to any meetings, and there's no time, there's nothing that has to happen, which is ideal. And this is your book.
Yes, this is my book. It's called Enough is Enough, Exploding the Myth of Having It All. And anybody that purchases the book becomes a member of the organization. I've got a membership card in there, because membership is free. I don't want anybody to have to do anything ever again that they don't want to do.
What a terrific idea. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
That's great.
We come back, we'll have a very funny